Hashtag AI in Tech News Daily, July 11, 2026. Apple just dropped a bombshell lawsuit against OpenAI. SK Hynix raised $26.5 billion. The EU is coming for Meta. Nvidia's RAM supplier hit a major snag. ChatGPT Work just launched, and a battery startup is challenging China's dominance, all happening right now. Stick around as we break down every story that's reshaping tech in the next 60 seconds. Apple sues OpenAI over alleged trade secret theft. Apple just dropped a bombshell lawsuit against OpenAI, and this isn't your typical corporate dispute. The tech giant is alleging that OpenAI's senior leadership orchestrated the theft of trade secrets, including involvement from a longtime former Apple employee. This is massive because it signals that the AI industry's golden boy is now facing serious legal scrutiny for allegedly playing dirty in the race to dominate artificial intelligence. Here's what makes this particularly significant. Apple has access to some of the most sensitive information in consumer technology, from hardware specifications to machine learning frameworks that power Siri and other AI features. If OpenAI actually obtained these trade secrets, they'd gain an enormous competitive advantage in developing consumer-facing AI products. The fact that Apple is naming senior leadership suggests this wasn't some rogue employee acting alone, but rather a coordinated effort from the top. That's the kind of allegation that could fundamentally damage OpenAI's reputation and potentially expose the company to massive damages. The broader context here is crucial. We're in the middle of an AI arms race where companies are desperately trying to outpace each other, and the pressure to innovate faster is creating ethical gray areas. This lawsuit reveals the darker side of that competition, where established tech giants and ambitious startups are willing to cross legal lines to gain advantages. If Apple's claims hold up, it could trigger a wave of similar litigation across the industry and force regulators to finally pay attention to how AI companies actually operate behind closed doors. SK Hynix raises $26.5 billion in the biggest foreign IPO in U.S. history, is urged to build new U.S. fabs. The AI chip industry just hit a historic milestone that tells us everything about where global power is shifting in technology. SK Hynix, the South Korean memory chip giant, just raised $26.5 billion in what's officially the largest foreign IPO in United States history. That's not just a number, that's a statement about how desperately the world needs more computing power to fuel the AI revolution we're living through right now. Here's the context that makes this moment so significant. Memory chips are the unsung heroes of artificial intelligence. While everyone talks about processors, it's actually the RAM and storage that determine whether an AI system can think fast or think at all. SK Hynix and Samsung control massive portions of the global memory chip supply, which means they're sitting on one of the most valuable resources in tech. The company's decision to go public in America, rather than stick with Korean markets, shows just how much capital these companies need to scale up production. The AI boom has created an insatiable hunger for chips, and existing factories simply can't keep up with demand. But here's where it gets really interesting for the future. Regulators and policymakers are now pushing SK Hynix to build new manufacturing facilities right here in the United States. This isn't just about business, it's geopolitical strategy. Countries are realizing that depending on foreign chip production is a vulnerability, especially as AI becomes critical infrastructure. By attracting SK Hynix to build American fabs, the US is trying to secure its technological independence while also creating high-skilled jobs. This IPO money could be exactly what funds that expansion. We're watching the AI boom reshape not just markets, but the actual geography of global technology manufacturing. EU threatens Meta with fines over addictive features on Facebook and Instagram. Meta's facing a massive regulatory hammer blow, and this could reshape how billions of people interact with social media. The European Commission just threatened the tech giant with serious fines for violating the Digital Services Act, specifically calling out Facebook and Instagram for deliberately designing addictive features. We're talking infinite scroll, autoplay videos, push notifications, and those hyper-personalized recommendation algorithms that keep you doomscrolling at 2 a.m. This isn't some vague complaint, the EU has concrete evidence that Meta engineered these features to maximize engagement at the expense of user well-being, and they're demanding the company change course or face financial consequences that could sting even a company with Meta's resources. Here's why this matters beyond just Europe. The Digital Services Act represents the first major regulatory framework that actually holds tech platforms accountable for their design choices. For years, Meta and other platforms have hidden behind the excuse that they're just algorithms doing their thing, but the EU is calling out what we all know: these features are deliberately manipulative. The recommendation algorithms are particularly important here because they don't just show you content you like, they show you content designed to trigger emotional responses and keep you engaged, often amplifying divisive material because controversy drives clicks. Meta's entire business model depends on maximizing time spent on platform, which directly conflicts with user autonomy and mental health. The broader implications are enormous. If the EU successfully forces Meta to redesign these features, it could trigger a domino effect across the entire tech industry. We could see similar regulations in other countries, and suddenly the playbook that made social media platforms billions becomes obsolete. This also highlights the growing tension between AI-driven personalization and human well-being. The same recommendation algorithms that make platforms addictive are the ones that spread misinformation and create filter bubbles. What's happening with Meta today could fundamentally reshape how tech companies approach user engagement, forcing them to choose between maximum addiction and actual responsibility. The question now is whether Meta will fight this or adapt, and either way, the era of consequence-free platform design is officially over. Nvidia and #8217's biggest RAM supplier just had a $1 trillion debut on Wall Street. A South Korean chipmaker just pulled off the biggest Wall Street debut in history, and it's a direct result of the AI arms race we're all living through right now. SK Hynix, which supplies critical memory chips to Nvidia and basically every major AI company on the planet, opened at $170 per share on Friday and raised a staggering $26.5 billion. That's not just a big number, it completely obliterated the previous record for a foreign company's debut. This isn't random timing. It's a perfect snapshot of where the global economy is headed. Here's why this matters beyond the headline: memory chips are the unsung heroes of artificial intelligence. While everyone talks about GPUs and processors, RAM is what actually lets these massive AI models run. Every time ChatGPT processes your question or an AI trains on millions of images, it's burning through memory bandwidth. SK Hynix is one of only 3 companies in the world that can manufacture these chips at scale, alongside Samsung and Micron. The demand is so insane right now that investors are literally throwing $26.5 billion at them just to get in on the action. That's how confident Wall Street is about the AI boom continuing. But here's the bigger picture: this debut signals something crucial about the next decade of technology. The infrastructure layer, the unglamorous stuff like memory, power systems, and cooling, is becoming just as valuable as the AI software itself. Companies building the picks and shovels for the AI gold rush are about to become some of the most important businesses on Earth. SK Hynix's $1 trillion valuation isn't a bubble, it's the market finally recognizing that you can't run advanced AI without reliable, massive supplies of memory. This is the foundation that everything else gets built on. OpenAI introduces ChatGPT Work, a cloud-based AI agent that manages tasks across email, Slack, and calendars. #ChatGPT Work, the AI agent that could reshape how we actually work. Your AI assistant just stopped being a chatbot and started being your coworker. OpenAI just dropped ChatGPT Work, and this isn't some incremental feature update, this is a fundamental shift in what artificial intelligence can do in your professional life. We're talking about an AI agent that doesn't just answer questions anymore. It actively manages your email, coordinates your calendar, pulls from your Slack conversations, and orchestrates tasks across multiple apps simultaneously. This, powered by GPT 5.6, OpenAI's latest model, represents the company's most ambitious play yet to move AI from a productivity tool into something that genuinely executes work on your behalf. Here's why this matters beyond the hype cycle. For years, AI companies have been chasing this exact vision: autonomous agents that understand context, make decisions, and take action without constant human supervision. ChatGPT Work actually delivers on that promise in a practical way. It can synthesize information from your connected apps, understand the nuances of your workflows, and generate finished outputs like reports, presentations, and spreadsheets without you having to manually orchestrate each step. That's not just faster, that's a different category of tool entirely. The cloud-based architecture means it's always running, always learning your patterns, always ready to handle the next task. The broader implications are genuinely significant. If this works as advertised, we're looking at a world where knowledge workers spend less time on execution and more on strategy and creativity. But there's also a real question about what this means for employment, data privacy, and who controls the AI systems managing your professional life. OpenAI is betting that autonomous agents are the next frontier, and if they're right, we're about to see a massive reshuffling of how work actually gets done. Apple is suing OpenAI for allegedly stealing hardware secrets. Apple just dropped a bombshell lawsuit against OpenAI, and this isn't your typical patent dispute. The iPhone maker is alleging that OpenAI actively encouraged Apple employees to jump ship while bringing along the crown jewels, confidential presentations, secret prototypes, and critical supplier information. This is industrial espionage territory, and it reveals something uncomfortable about how AI companies are scaling up their operations. When you're trying to build the next generation of AI systems, apparently some companies believe the fastest path is hiring away your competitors' talent along with their secrets. Here's the business context that makes this particularly explosive. Apple has spent decades perfecting hardware integration, supply chain management, and the relationship between silicon and software. That knowledge is worth billions. OpenAI, meanwhile, has been aggressively expanding beyond language models into multimodal AI and hardware applications. They need people who understand how to manufacture at scale, how to work with suppliers like TSMC, and how to integrate custom chips into consumer products. Rather than building that expertise organically, the lawsuit suggests OpenAI saw a shortcut: recruit the people who already know these secrets and let them bring the blueprints with them. What makes this case significant for all of us watching the AI boom unfold is that it exposes the darker side of talent wars in tech. Every major AI company is in a desperate race for specialized talent, and when you're competing for engineers who've worked on cutting-edge projects, the temptation to bend ethical and legal rules apparently becomes real. If Apple's allegations hold up, this could set a precedent that forces AI companies to be more careful about how they recruit and what they ask new hires to contribute. The broader implication is clear: the AI industry's explosive growth might be built partly on practices that would make traditional tech companies' legal teams lose sleep. This lawsuit could be the first domino in a much larger reckoning. Meet the battery startup taking on China's giants. Hashtag solid-state battery breakthrough: why this startup could reshape global tech. China's been absolutely dominating the battery game, and frankly, most Western companies have been playing catch-up for years. But there's a startup making a bold move with solid-state battery technology, and this could be the inflection point that changes everything. Solid-state batteries are fundamentally different from the lithium-ion cells powering your phone right now. They replace the liquid electrolyte with a solid material, which means safer chemistry, higher energy density, and longer lifespans. The problem? They're notoriously difficult to manufacture at scale. But that's also the opportunity. While Chinese manufacturers have perfected traditional battery production, solid-state is still a relatively open field, and whoever cracks mass production first could leapfrog the entire industry. Here's why this matters beyond just better batteries. We're talking about the backbone of everything from electric vehicles to AI data centers. The energy density improvements mean EVs could go further on a single charge, and that directly impacts adoption rates. For AI infrastructure, better batteries mean more efficient backup power systems and potentially mobile computing solutions we haven't even imagined yet. The startup's approach suggests they've found a manufacturing pathway that others thought was impossible, which is exactly the kind of breakthrough that reshuffles the global tech hierarchy. The broader implication is geopolitical. For nearly a decade, China's controlled the battery supply chain, which gave them leverage over every major tech company building anything that needs power. If a Western startup successfully scales solid-state production, it doesn't just mean better products, it means supply chain independence and a genuine alternative to Chinese dominance. That's huge for national security, for innovation competition, and for companies tired of being dependent on a single region. This is one of those rare moments where a technical breakthrough could actually reshape which countries lead the next decade of technology. Thanks for staying updated with Neural Brief. Hit subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss tomorrow's biggest AI breakthroughs. See you tomorrow.